Hello, my friends, and welcome to This Week in Space. I am your host with the most, Jonah Emerson Bell. I'm an astrologer and tarot reader, and your weekly wizard helping to bring you your astrological weather for the week so you know how to show up, what to expect, kind of when to bob, when to weave, when to float like a butterfly, when to sting like a bee. You know what I'm saying? So thanks for joining me. I like to do this each and every week. Comes out on Mondays whenever I get around to it, just to help you be in the know with what's going down in the celestial spheres. So this week we don't have a lot of astro weather going on, but we do have a pretty intense full moon in Leo that's going to be happening on Wednesday, and so sort of take you through the things leading up to that and really focusing on the Leo full moon and the archetypes of Leo and Aquarius this week. Before we dive all the way into the astral weather, I'd like to tell you about a couple exciting announcements, things that I got going on. I will be part of the Los Angeles Astro Fest, which is a new astrology conference. It's going to be happening last weekend in April in LA. I'm going to be giving a talk on astrology and parts work, therapeutic parts work, which is a modality that sort of therapy modality that assumes that we are kind of a multiplicity, that we have many minds, right? And that there is kind of the individual self or kind of alignment, and then we have kind of parts of ourselves that we can work with and navigate, which is very similar to astrology. Astrology is a system that supposes that we have many parts of the psyche or parts of the life that we can get to know and that we can work with in various ways. So I'm really excited to be invited to that, very honored and excited to be talking there. So if you're interested in astrology and happen to be in the LA area or want to come on out, it's going to be great. And there's a number of other excellent astrologers who are going to be part of this as well, including Diana Rose Harper, Sam Reynolds, Lindsay Turner, Blair Bogan, who I'm taking a astral magic class with right now, which is fantastic. So if you're interested in learning astral magic, look up their work, Sister Bride. Anyway, so that's one cool thing that I got going on. Another thing that I just wanted to let folks know about is I'm going to be teaching a 8-part class on the traditional planets with my partner Marlena Seven Bremner, who is an alchemist and artist and a pretty brilliant human being. And so we're doing a deep dive into each of the traditional planets every week, looking at them through a mythological, astrological, psychological, alchemical, magical lens, sort of really learning how to come into relationship with the planets and how to work with them, how to notice them, how to appreciate them. So that, yeah, and then there will be eighth class for integration. And what we can take with us and how to develop, continuing practice and how to like integrate what was learned in the class into our lives. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll put a link in the show notes, or you can go to marlena7bremner.com and check out the description for the class and sign up if you're interested. And that's going to be starting on March the 1st. So if you want to learn more about the traditional planets and how they might show up in the self, in the psyche, in the life, in the world, and how to work with them, how to get to know them, how to befriend them, check it out. Love to have you join and love to see you in class. So I think that's all of the announcements. I also want to give a big shout out to Lost and Found Vintage in Nevada City, California. I'm going to be reading cards there a little later today. I'm recording this on Sunday, but I'd just like to give a big shout out to that spot, which has some great vintage, and I appreciate them inviting me to read cards. I actually got this shirt there. So anyway. If you happen to be in the Nevada City area, go check out Lost and Found Vintage because they're rad. All right, that's enough of the sort of shout outs and advertisements. Let's get all up in the astrology for the week, shall we? Okay, starting off Monday, February the 10th. Kicking it off with Mercury in Aquarius, squaring off with Uranus in Taurus. This is going down at 23 degrees and 19 arc minutes of these fixed signs. So on Sunday the 9th, we had the Mercury Sun conjunction, the Cazimi. And now Mercury is starting to move out in front of the sun a little by little, right? Mercury's moving a little faster than the sun, and they're beginning to just separate, but they're still traveling together. And I talked about kind of the information and the archetypes and what the Mercury Sun conjunction might mean and might look like in last week's episode. So you can go back in the archive and check that one out if you're like, what is he talking about? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. But I think it's important to remember that Mercury and the Sun are still within orb of conjunction. They are not very far apart. And so they are rolling together and doing things together, and still sort of their energies are kind of blended. Right. And so they're both going to be making this hard aspect to Uranus. Mercury perfects that aspect on Monday the 10th, and then the Sun will perfect the square to Uranus on Tuesday the 11th. Right. So Uranus is a planet of revolution, of liberation, of upheaval. It's also a planet of disruption. Uranus causes breakdowns, which can lead to breakthroughs, hopefully. But there's some sort of something that we've been holding on to that might get disrupted or challenged or even blown up, right? In order to bring us to that breakthrough moment. So it's not always easy. Uranus is not the most pleasant planet to be dealing with, right? It is unexpected and unpredictable. And I think as human beings, we like expected things, right? We like things that we can predict. We like routines. We like structures, right? When things come out of the blue, they can disrupt these routines and make us feel unsafe, or it can feel very destabilizing, right? And Uranus kind of keeps us on our toes so that we don't get locked in, that we don't get too calcified. It keeps us sort of guessing, and it keeps us needing to juggle things in order to allow new things to come into the system and allow us to not just get too comfortable. But, this is not always easy, right? So Mercury deals with our thinking and mental processes. It's how we make connections, how we communicate our understandings. Uranus squaring Mercury can bring in new and startling information. Uranus is connected with electricity and lightning, which both illuminates, right? Lightning illuminates the surroundings and also shocks the system. Electricity can illuminate the situation, right? We flip a switch, light bulb comes on, ding, right? But also, if it is not grounded correctly, it can electrocute us, right? Zap us, which might wake us up or create some sort of breakthrough in some ways, or it might just fry our system, right? And leave us with our ears smoking like a cartoon character, right? And so this is Mercury's coming into a square, which is a hard aspect, which creates friction, right? And friction and tension sort of pushes us towards change. So with this square, we might get new information, which challenges some old ideas. Mercury and the Sun just perfected their conjunction the day before, right? Which may create a kind of an over-identification with our thoughts, right? The Sun is our identity, and Mercury can be our thinking. So it's like, oh, this is what I am. This is who I am. This thing that I said, I'm like doubling down. I'm backing that up, especially in this fixed sign of Aquarius, right? Aquarius is kind of fixing ideas, holding ideas, right? And as the Sun and Mercury come together, there might be this sort of like, this is who I am because this is what I said, right? There might be a tendency to define ourselves by our thoughts or our ideas. And so with this square from Uranus, we might get new information or new ideas, right? That comes in and disrupts our beliefs, right? Or the ideas that we have been identifying with. And this might be information from the news. This might be information from our bodies, right? This might be information from other people who are telling us, hey, I didn't like that, or like, hey, have you ever thought of it this way, right? And then we get this choice of being like, no, it's got to be like this, right? Or we can sort of step back and be like, huh, how can that change how I identify? How can that change how I think, right? And, this might make us feel like our identity or sense of self is being challenged. And this can feel pretty disruptive, right? And so, again, it's our choice of what we do with that feeling of disruption, whether that leads to activation and shutdown, right? Oh, right? Or whether we can find ways of channeling that to create change, right? Electricity does work if it is channeled in the right place. So if we can channel whatever this Uranian energy is or electricity, it can do some work for us, right? As long as it is well insulated and delivered to the place that the work needs to get done, right? And so, with this sun, Mercury hanging out in the fixed air sign, right, there might be like a desire to hold fast to some old ideas, right, and to our identification with our ideas, to like tense up and reject or push back against whatever is disruptive, right, whatever information Uranus is bringing into the system and being like, no, right, like getting all tense and reactive, right, or defensive, right. Um, we don't necessarily need to accept whatever Uranus is offering, but, I would suggest that we might want to be open to it. And I think one of the gifts of Aquarius is the ability to step back and to observe the bigger picture, right? And take an outsider's perspective, which can help us to detach emotionally so that we can see things more clearly, ideally, right? Instead of being like, no, like I am so emotionally invested in this idea of who I am, we might be able to like, lean back a little bit and be like, okay, that is an idea. And this is another idea, not that this is my idea and your idea is challenging my idea, right? So if we can like let go of that over identification with any like thought process or idea, or any information that we're holding on to, what is that like? And what can we gain when we sort of take a bigger picture and gain this like outsider's perspective that helps us to detach from the emotion of it so that we might be able to see things a little bit more clearly, right? Um, however, I think part of this square is that when our ideas or views get challenged, especially now, it might feel like our identity is being threatened. And just see if you can step back, right? See if you can notice, like, if this arises today, if there is disruption, right? If there is a little chaos, if there is a challenge, right? Seeing if you can notice what's happening in the body and just like step back, right? And kind of witness for a moment before retracting, right, or reacting, right? And I think Uranus and Mercury tend to bring some nervous system activation, which can lead to dysregulation. And again, Uranus is pretty electrical, and our nervous system is an electrical system, right? And we can feel like there's too much voltage moving through our nervous system, or too much voltage moving through the system, and this can lead to feelings of burnout and overwhelm. So being really gentle with yourself today and throughout the week, right? And think about ways that we can like discharge this energy or ground it, right? Or like bring it to where it can do that work, right? So we're not carrying around this intense charge, which is like burning us out, right? Or zapping other people, right? And, thinking about ways that you can care for your nervous system, drinking adaptogens or taking adaptogens, getting enough sleep, right? Maybe cutting down on caffeine just for a couple days. And as I said that, I noticed a part of myself being like, no, I can't cut down. I will not cut down on caffeine. Right? I love this like activated, like totally frenetic sense, this feeling of like, right. And that's maybe like an idea that I'm holding on to, like very rigidly. No, this is me, right? You have to pry this caffeine from my cold, dead hand. So I don't know, it's funny just like being able to talk it through. I notice this sort of energy arising in me, which I think is really helpful, and as I like step back and witness that, then maybe that can be right sized and it doesn't need to be so like, it's got to be this way. Just saying, just saying. So on Tuesday, February the 11th, we have the Sun in Aquarius. perfecting their square to Uranus and Taurus, and this is happening at 23 degrees and 19 minutes. So just several, yeah, same degree, same minute that Mercury hit Uranus at, right? And so, sorry, just checking my notes. So Uranus as we can think about one of the archetypes of Uranus as Prometheus, right, who stole fire from the gods, and this is the sort of solar fire of the mind. Right? This is the power of the sun that is held in the bodies of plants that are eaten by animals, that are consumed by us, that releases that energy into our bodies and into our blood, that feeds our brains, that sparks insights and ideas, right? And that creative impulse, right? This fire of the mind propels us forward into creation. This also may be the craving for something different, wanting something other than what we have that both pulls us forward and also frustrates us. Right. And I talked about this last week in the kind of frustration of always being like, oh my God, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And this is part of a component of samsara, of the world of illusion, thinking that the next thing will make me okay now. Right. And I think this is sort of the Promethean energy of being like, it can be better, right? It's got to get to its best possible, most ideal outcome, right? So we're sort of striving for this thing, which I think is beautiful. And also, there can be a sense with the Promethean Uranus, right? That it's not good enough. It's not reaching the ideal. And if it's not reaching the ideal, then it's no good and needs to be blown up, torn down, or started again, right? And so I think that the Sun square Uranus creates a tension between our identity, right? Who we think, who we are, who we believe ourselves to be, and that thing that we're striving for, right? This like sense of authenticity, right? This is me, right? And this is who I want to be, right? And where I perceive myself as being, right? And maybe I'm not where I want to be, so I'm no good, right? Is a way that Uranus can sort of blow that up in the square, which again is a hard aspect in creating tension. Right. Perhaps our ego or sense of self might feel like outdated or old or stale in some way, right? The kind of vision of myself that I've been living out or who I perceive myself to be might not feel like aligned with who I want to be or who I think I can be or maybe who I believe I should be. Right. And Uranus seeks liberation. They're trying to bring things to their ideal. Right. So perhaps we developed an identity based on our survival needs, right? Or on external expectations. You're supposed to go to college and like get married to somebody of the opposite sex and, get like procreate and get a job and have, cars and stuff, right? And maybe, we were like, oh, this is what I need to do, right? This is how I survive, or this is how I'm valued, or this is, what is expected of me. And then we might find ourselves at a certain point being like, is this my beautiful house? Is this my beautiful wife? Right? Being like, is this really me? Is this authentic? Is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? You know? And I think it's really important to question these things. And also, it can be really destabilizing, right? As we question, oh, this thing that I've put all this energy and time and effort into, this being that I believe to be who I am, is that actually in line with who I really am, right? And what is sort of burning deep inside me, right? So maybe we molded ourselves to fit an external idea that we thought we were supposed to be. This ego identity might be in conflict with this authentic self, right? This deep self. And so during this square from Uranus to the sun, new ideas may arise. There might be parts of ourselves that come alive or wake up, right? I think Aquarius is pretty like radical and revolutionary. It's the sign of the outsider, right? you know, and that's where the sun and Mercury are, right? So we might be getting new ideas from the Uranus square to Mercury, and these ideas might challenge our belief about who we are or who we're supposed to be, right? And Uranus is moving through Taurus, which is trying to hold on to the things that it values. And it's trying to fix the sense of stability. And I think that Uranus's adventure through Taurus, which I believe oh man, I think it started in 2019, has really like upturned a lot of stability. It's sort of like an earthquake, right? It is the kind of revolutionary god, right, who is moving through this stable earth sign, right, that is trying to hold on to value systems, and these value systems are being upturned and uprooted. Right. And how does this affect my sense of self as the value system goes haywire? Right. And where do I stand in this? And who am I in all of this? Right. The sun in Aquarius may give us some insight into different parts of ourselves, right? The parts that didn't fit or parts that wanted to be different, right? Parts that may have had been forced to conform to external value systems, right? Parts that are outsiders or rebels. Uranus says that if it feels authentic, it needs to be honored. And if it's not, then I'm going to blow something up so that this authentic part can be a little bit more free, right? Have a little bit more space. I study with Austin Coppock, and I really enjoy his class and his fundamentals of astrology. And one of the things that he talks about is the glyph of the sun, which is a circle with a dot in the center. And, I actually have that tattooed somewhere on my body. Um, there you go, glyph of the sun right there. All right. Just for a visual reference, I probably should have written it down on something, but I guess I had it tattooed on my body. Anyway, this circle with the dot in the center, right? And so the circle, right? This is the circumpunct, right? The outer circle, right? Maybe the ways that we radiate our light, right, into the world and how we share it with others. It is the sort of persona or the outer sort of level of our sense of self or the way that we show up in the world, right? This is the way that others perceive our light. And the dot in the center, right, is the molten core that is kind of burning, the molten core of the authentic self that is burning at the heart of us, that is radiating outward, right? And I think the goal of the sun is to bring that molten core, that center, that, capital S self, into alignment with the outer circle, the persona and the ways that we show up in the world, right? With this square from Uranus, there's a pull to acknowledge that central fire, that core essence, and to notice what that molten core needs to be able to come into the world, right? And to bring ourselves a little bit more into alignment, right? And I think Uranus is like anything that is like separating, anything that is standing in the way of those things, I want to throw out, right? I want to blow up. I want to tear down, which like, this language is not very gentle, right? Blow up, tear down, right? And so, we have to be very aware of like when these things arise, what we do with it, right? When these blocks are revealed to us, are we going to like shut that down? Right? Are we going to try and eradicate that longing, right? Or are we going to try and eradicate that block, right? How do we deal with this? How do we hold this, right? And again, I think Prometheus brings this fire of awareness and the fire of imagination to humans, right? With this spark of imagination, Uranus Prometheus also brings this quality of the ideal, like I said, and the imagination creates this perfect vision of what could be and also what should be. And the spark causes us to reach out for the vision and strive for this ideal. And this can be really beneficial. However, the problem with the idealization, if things don't live up to this perfect vision, Uranus tends to like want to tear it down, like I said. And this can be really challenging with a square to both to the sun, right, our identity, right, and to Mercury, our thoughts and ideas. So Uranus can say this isn't good enough, or that's not what I wanted, or this should be better, and then like blow everything up, which can leave us feeling some type of way, right? So the challenge is to really be with it and to allow for these disruptions and see what that points to, right? See what that illuminates, and to see if we can be open to the idealized vision of what could be with staying present with what is without needing to destroy what we have built or where we are, right? And so again, right, one of the things that I would recommend this week is being really gentle with ourselves. And again, I think benefit of Aquarius is being able to step back, right? And to have a little bit of a emotional detachment so we can witness, witness and see where is that blockage, where is that challenge, where is this new idea, what is being illuminated, and how can I sit with that, and how can I hold that, and how can I learn from it, and I think that this requires some patience and it requires a lot of courage. And I think courage is a big key word for this week and for Wednesday's full moon in Leo, which I'm going to talk about right now. So, Wednesday, February the 12th, we are getting a full moon in Leo at 24 degrees and 6 arc minutes of the fixed fire sign. Occurs at 5:53 a.m. That's Pacific time, making that 8:53 in the a.m. on the East Coast. This full moon is in a T square to Uranus. So with a full moon, we have the opposition of the sun in one sign and then the moon in the other, and then we have Uranus, squaring both of them. And then we have Mercury very close to the sun still, right? And so what we have is a fixed T square. So there's a lot of tension there, right? Fixed signs, again, are fixing, they are holding on, right? They want to maintain whatever has been developed, right? So, Aquarius is fixing the idea, right? Fixing the air, whatever that looks like, if you can think about what fixed air might look like, right? Might be a wind that's constantly blowing, right? Um, it might be like the breath that's constantly happening, right? That might be fixed air, and just thinking about what that might look like for you. I think about like an idea that's being maintained, right? Holding on to this idea, holding on to this sort of awareness. We have fixed fire in Leo, which is tending the fire, keeping that fire burning. And then we have fixed earth with Taurus, where Uranus is, right? Which again is like trying to hold on to stability and hold on to what we value, right? Trying to hold on to the nice things that give us pleasure in life. And so, there's all this tension because everything's trying to hold on, right? But like something's got to give. And, oppositions and squares like beg for change. They activate change. They create tension. And again, tension creates friction, which shifts things, when we can no longer hold that tension, right? And so, with the moon in Leo, right? Again, fixed fire and concerned with how we keep this fire going. Like, and one of the questions that we can ask is, what do we need to do to tend our fire? And what fires are worth putting in energy to keep tending, right? Leo is ruled by the sun, right? It is about developing and maintaining a healthy level of self-esteem, right? About tending this solar fire in the self, like we were talking about, that center of the sun. How do we tend to that? How do we feed that, right? This part that says, this is me and this is who I am and this is what I'm striving for, right? What does that need to be tended? What does that need to be fed so that it can, burn bright? Right. The full moon reveals the development of projects that were initiated under the new moon. It is the ripening of seeds that were planted at the beginning of the cycle. And this past new moon was in Capricorn, cardinal Earth. Right. So here we see the kind of emerging of the individual sense of self or ego identity in the full moon of Leo. Right. And we can see if it's in alignment with the internal sense of self, that internal molten core of that fire, that authentic self that burns within each of us. Right? And so, where Leo is concerned with the individual identity and its alignment with the authentic self, Aquarius is about the collective. It's all of us, right? And I think, in this opposition, right, the opposition of these signs and the opposition of the lights, the sun and the moon, this is about how I fit into the bigger picture, right? How you fit into the bigger picture, right? How I, and me go into we, right? And what might need to be shifted or adjusted, right? So that like the eye can fit into the whole, right? Right? Aquarius is about the collective, where the individual becomes sublimated to the collective. Right? Leo, I see Leo like a particle, right? An individual component, and Aquarius is like the wave, right? Where all the individual particles become part of this like motion and flow. As a fixed sign, Aquarius is interested again in maintaining the perspective. It is ruled by Saturn, which like holds down that distance and sense of objectivity, right? It says this is inside the circle, this is outside the circle, right? Aquarius, uh, sorry. Um, Aquarius, as a Saturn ruled air sign, has a very kind of like rational quality. Right? It has this like utopian vision of rationalism that says that if we just know enough, or if we get enough information, we will be able to create peace and prosperity, right? If I can just observe, right, and notice and gather information, then I will know what to do, right? Um, and I don't know if this is proven to be the case, right? Currently, we are flooded with so much information that our nervous systems are overwhelmed, and no one is even quite sure what is true anymore or what is real, right? And so the sense of like objectivity, the sense of like rational objectivity, leads to a kind of mind-body split, right? Because the kind of valuing of reason and logic over the intuition of the body says like, oh, I need to be up here looking at these things, knowing things, gathering facts and information so that I can cure disease and create world peace, right? And the body just slows me down, right? The body is something different, right? The body is seen as kind of inferior to the rational mind, right? And we sort of separate the logical thinking from the intuitive knowing of the body, right? And so I think that there is this quality of detachment in Aquarius, which can separate us from our felt experience and from the wisdom of the body. And we see this in the glyph of the two wavy lines, one over the other, right? And this is the glyph of Aquarius, right? And we can think about this as like the hierarchy of the information that we privilege over the information that we don't, right? And I think what has happened in the West and maybe all over the world in the modern age is that thought and logic takes precedence over feeling and sensing. And the kind of like utopian vision of this fixed air sign of Aquarius says that science and information and technology will save us and create a better world. And I think that there's another part of the Aquarian archetype, which, also plays into this, which we can think of as maybe like the new age, right? And again, this like Aquarian utopian vision of ascension, right? Which tries to bypass the difficult emotions or challenging thoughts. It says this world is inferior and we must ascend to reach our full potential. And again, this New Age vision of utopia says that salvation lies in transcending our animal bodies and moving into other realms of consciousness. The ideal is about disconnecting from the physical and cultivating the mental and separating or like trying to eradicate negative, quote unquote, negative thinking, right? Or like bad thoughts or challenging emotions like rage and fear and sorrow and grief, right? Just sort of being like, no, if I can get above those, then I will be okay, right? And so, again, I think that this is about disconnecting from the physical and cultivating the mental, right? Fixing consciousness in the mind, right? And both these utopian visions are predicated on this split of mental consciousness from somatic wisdom or experience, or presence, right? I think both of these ideas pit the mind against the body, right? So Aquarius is also very future oriented, is interested in cultivating new technologies and developing new kind of ideas that pull us into the future and help us to develop our full potential so we can achieve the ideal. However, it is also Saturn ruled, so there's some ways which it also longs to return to the past. Saturn rules over the golden age, right? The time when no one had to work and everything was easy and pleasant and free. And I think there is a part of the Saturnian archetype that really longs for, oh, it was better then. right? And we can see this in our kind of like as we get older, and I'm beginning to notice this now. I'm like, oh man, things were so much better when I was young, right? Oh, if I could just walk to the Blockbuster and rent myself a video, like God, I miss those days. Things were so much easier then, right? And this is the Saturnian longing for an idealized past, right? Which only happens when we start like moving into our Saturn phase of life, right? We don't do this when we're young. We do this when we're old and embrace Saturn, right? And so again, Saturn or like the kind of utopian vision of Aquarius, I think the Saturn part of it holds on to this idealized past, right? And this can also be the ideal that the Aquarian archetype is striving for. And so I think currently, collectively, we are at a place where these two archetypes are in conflict with each other. The longing for the future and like creating something new and using technology or like, even being open to new ideas is in conflict with the part of our culture or the part of the self that is trying to or that is longing to return to an idealized past. So we have the desire to embrace the idealized future, in conflict with that longing to return to the idealized past. And so Leo across the zodiac, right? And again, the Sun and Mercury are both in this Aquarian sign, which is striving for some sort of utopian vision, right? And Leo is associated with the lion. This is where the moon is, right? And this is where we are getting this full moon, this reflected light from the sun, right? Leo is associated with the lion, with royalty and sovereignty, right? It is connected in with the heart, right? And I think one of the pieces of Leo is about the cultivation of courage. Leo says that courage comes from the heart, right? And it takes both courage and the wisdom of the heart to be authentic and to be true to ourselves, as well as to be good leaders, right? And I think to be a good leader, we need to be true to ourselves, and we need to have the courage to be able to do both of these things. Right? So with this full moon, we can think about filling our heart, right? Full moon as it culminates, this energy culminates and reveals itself. We can think about filling the heart, right? Or our hearts coming into fullness. And the question becomes, what do we fill our hearts with? You know, what do we want to call in here? And my suggestion is to fill the heart with courage. Courage and bravery can look a bunch of different ways, right? And then Leo, we can think about cultivating the courage to be authentic, to really be ourselves. And that is a courageous act, especially in these times. The square to this full moon from Uranus, I think will settle for nothing less. I think that Uranian energy is really pushing us, right, to be our authentic selves, or at least to give a little space for that. There might be ways that Uranus pushes or disrupts or even blows up our attempts to turn away or run from our authenticity, right, or from our true selves. And on another level, I think this full moon is asking us to develop the courage to be with and even to like lean into uncomfortable feelings like fear and anger and grief and sorrow. These sort of negative emotions may hold some deep wisdom that might be important for us to learn from. And, notice my air quotes on negative, right? I don't think any emotions are bad. And I think to cast them as negative or reject them is super problematic. And, I'm going to talk about that moving forward, right? And, we may find difficulty accessing the courage to be with these challenging feelings because courage is not really valued in our world. We see it in movies, like it's talked about a lot. There's like, this heroic, courageous ideal, right? But this is a lot of talk, right? Actual courage is not really valued, right? Instead, we are taught and actually encouraged to disconnect and disassociate. We are told to run from unwanted feelings and these negative emotions, right? Like fear, anger, sadness, right? These things that are difficult for other people to be around that we don't know how to sit with, right? We're really kind of taught to disassociate from them, right? To use work, media, sex, drugs, alcohol, our phones, whatever, to not have to feel our emotions and to escape from experiencing difficult feelings. And so this Leo full moon is about having the courage to be with these challenging feelings and to feel our fear and our rage in order to learn from them. They're great teachers. Anger teaches us where our boundaries have been violated, where we feel our values are not being honored, and what feels vital to life is being threatened. Like that is really important information, right? Anger shows us what is really important to us. Or, sorry, fear shows us what is really important to us. Both of them, right? Fear shows us what we are afraid to lose, right? So fear teaches us what we truly value: our relationships, our lives, our earth, our stability, our freedom, right? They're the earth. It's not even our earth, right? But, the planet that we live in, our home, right? Those places where fear creeps in point to what we care most about and what we really don't want to lose. Again, really valuable information. And with this full moon, we can think about filling our hearts with the bravery or the courage to be with these challenging feelings, right? Without disconnecting or rejecting them, without othering them, right? Without projecting them outward. Oh, it's because of you. You did this to me, right? It's your fault. And when we do this, we can increase our capacity to be present so that we are able to learn from these feelings, right? What they have to teach us, what they have to show us about what we value, what is important. So maybe we can think about creating a little bit more space in ourselves just to be with what arises. We want to be able to hold fear and anger or grief without saying that's bad, right? That's negative. Oh, I shouldn't feel that. That's negative, right? Oh, what a bummer. What a buzzkill, right? you know, or being like this person who is doing this to me, this group of people is doing this to me, so they are bad, right? We want to develop the capacity for compassion and curiosity and a sense of calm to be present with what is arising and arriving and to learn from it and to work with it instead of making it bad or running away. Right. I like to go to this Dharma talk. It's called Big Heart City. It's out of San Francisco. It's a Sangha outside of San Francisco, and they have a online Zoom meeting every week on Fridays. And it's led by this dude, Vinny Ferraro. And this week he was talking about fear, and he was saying that the antidote to fear and to these negative emotions that arise is in the Buddhist virtues of compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, right? He says we don't need to believe 100% in these Buddhist virtues of compassion or loving kindness or whatever to be free from the fear, right? If we just need to believe in these virtues a little bit more than the fear. Says that if we can hold 51% of compassion, right, in ourselves to 49% of fear, then we can be with it and we can move through it and we can be all right. Which I think this is brilliant, right? We just need to believe a little bit more, right? We just need to hold a little bit more loving kindness or sympathetic joy, right? Or compassion, right? To be able to like be with the fear or the rage or the grief or whatever arises, the loneliness, right? So during this full moon, we can think about some of the ways that we can increase our compassion or loving kindness or joy, right? We can check in with like what level is that at, especially in these like really challenging times where there is a lot of fear and it's very easy to like spiral out and become dysregulated, right? All we need is just a little bit more courage than fear, just a little bit more, just a little bit more compassion and love than rage to be able to work with it and to move through it, and ideally to learn from it. Right? And we don't want to try and eradicate our fear. And I think this is really important because we can't actually get rid of it. It's a part of ourselves, right? We can't get rid of any part of ourselves or any part of the world for that matter. Right? And um, We want to try and open to it and have the courage and bravery to create the space to be with it in ourselves and also in the world. And this is challenging. And we need to figure out ways that we can include what is difficult. And when we locate the problem or feeling in a person, right? When we locate the problem in ourselves or in a feeling or in a person, there's the desire to eradicate it or to get rid of the problem, right? To outsource it. Oh, it's not me, that's them, right? And we got if we just get rid of them, everything will be good, right? And this is what we are seeing, and that we have been seeing in Gaza, right? The belief that if Hamas is removed, then things will be all right, or if the Palestinian people are removed, then peace will happen, right? And this is really faulty logic. This doesn't work, right? It's just projecting the shadow onto other people and then trying to remove the shadow, right, in the hopes that it will remove the problem. And this never works. It just pushes the shadow around, right? Because that lives in the self. And if we outsource it onto somebody else, right, and make them the problem and remove them, to eradicate the problem, to eradicate the thing in ourselves, never going to work, right? The shadow needs to be accepted in the self and integrated. To just remove and move the shadow perpetuates these deep and damaging issues, right? And so Aquarius, again, coming back to the astrology, is about what's inside and what's outside, what is like normal and what is outcast, right? And again, this creates splitting and separation and inherently creates an othering, right? The other who is not me, or is not my family, is not my group, is not my belief system, is not my nation, whatever, right? And when we other people, we dehumanize them. When we other nature, we turn it from a living, animate world into a dead matter that we can just extract resources from, use up, and discard, right? And this is what happens when we other. We sort of rob their animate qualities, right? And again, this is splitting and separation, right? Mind from body, me from you, Democrats from Republicans, Israelis from Palestinians, humans from nature, right? And when we are, when we do this, we are able to do horrible things to each other and to ourselves, right? But whenever we are able to cultivate the courage to lean into something bigger that has the capacity to include all of these parts, even the gnarly, uncomfortable ones, something powerful, really powerful can occur. And I think this is truly revolutionary. And I think this is what Uranus can bring to this, this sense of liberation, right? And we don't have to be okay with terrible things, right? And we can hold that like Nazis suck and they probably shouldn't be allowed to like march blatantly in the streets and espouse racism and hatred, right? And we can work with that without cutting off or splitting or shutting down, right? We can work to increase that capacity in ourselves to just be with what is difficult without checking out. And so I went to this lecture on the archetype of the warrior by this Jungian teacher and I'm guessing therapist, Dr. Martinez Francisco. And one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me was when what we harm in the self, we harm in the world, right? We are a part of the fabric of the world. If something splits in myself, it splits in the whole, right? And if I heal this wound in myself, those wounds are healed in the whole. Right? We are all connected and intricately linked to this whole system. And I think that this is really important to hold, right? And I think this is the actual Aquarian ideal, right? When I have the courage and bravery in that Leo part to be authentic and to, lean in and begin healing myself, right? It has an effect on the whole, on the collective, right? When the particle is able to sort of come into wholeness in the self, right, in their particleness, it has an impact on the entire wave. And I think that this is really, really important. And so if we can trust that we are intricately linked to the whole, everything can be workable, right? And if everything can be workable, then we don't need to reject or eradicate anything in the self or in others, right? When we are able to tune into ourselves and to the wisdom of our bodies, when we're able to get quiet and listen to the faint voice of our inner knowing, we will have much better chance of knowing the right thing to do at the right time. Right? The challenge with Uranus squaring this moon is that it can dysregulate us, can make us feel like we need to do a bunch of stuff, right? Or it can make us feel overwhelmed or super activated, right? It can give us nervous system burnout, and to just come back into the heart, right? To like really work on developing the capacity to be present, right? And to the courage to increase the space to be with whatever arises, right? And to have like just a little bit more courage than that fear, right? Just a little bit more compassion than that rage, right? Or that hatred. And to just trust that we will know what to do when the time is right, and to not get like all burnt out, right? All like overwhelmed, because I don't think that's going to do us any good. And it's so easy to just sort of be pulled into activation and overwhelm, right? But I think having the courage to just be with ourselves and to notice what is right, and to listen to that small, quiet voice, right? To listen to that inner knowing that tells us like this is the next right thing to do, and that's all we have to do is the next right thing, you know. And we just have to, accept that in ourselves. And we have to have the cultivate that courage and bravery to be with where we are, in this moment. And so, with that, my friends, I think I will bid you a fond farewell for the week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that somebody out there found this helpful. Again, this is my pleasure and great honor to get to do this. It's also maybe a compulsion. I don't know, but I really enjoy getting to do this. And thank you so much for tuning in. It would be pretty pointless without you. So, if you like this, I guess like and subscribe. I don't know what that means, but if it feels right, go ahead and do that because I think it helps get this out there. Also, if you know people who might benefit from it, like share it, send it out there. I also have begun releasing this as a podcast. I think it's on Spotify and Apple, and I haven't checked the comments from last week, but if there is a podcast location that you would like that it isn't on that you'd like me to see if I can get it put up there, just let me know, and I'll do what I can to navigate that labyrinth to get it out there for you. Yeah. I don't know, share it, check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes to one of the places that it is podcasted at. Yeah. I think that's about it. I don't know. Again, I got this class on the seven traditional planets that I'm teaching with the brilliant and talented Marlena Seven Bremner. That will be starting March 1st. There's still a few spaces left. If you're interested in coming into a deeper relationship with the planetary archetypes, check it out. There will be a link in the show notes, or you can look at marlena7bremner.com. And then also check me out at LA Astro Fest and check out the whole thing because it's going to be great. A lot of brilliant astrologers are going to be talking about some awesome things there. It's a really good group, and it's a kind of a small conference, so I think there'll be a lot of opportunity for questions and workshops and hobnobbing and hanging out, which is really cool. And I think all of the people there are really approachable. So there's no need for like overwhelm if you don't know a lot about astrology, if you're just starting out, if you want to learn more. I think that that's a great place to meet some people who are doing some really interesting work. So again, I'll put a link in the show notes about LA Astro Fest that's going down at the end of April. And that, my friends, is all the astro weather that is fit to print. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Same wizard time, same wizard channel. And until then, my friends, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. And as always, may the force be with you. Bye now.